Hello everyone, my name is Ajay and this is part 9. And if you look at the overall architecture on Azure, before provisioning or utilizing the cloud model, before we talk about on NSG, the network security groups, under the security group, you can see there are three options: Bastion host, DDoS, validation is passed, and the subnet. Once your VNet is ready, you can go to the subnets and we can see there's a one subnet which. So now if I go to the subnets and try to add a new subnet from here, now let's try to create a NSG group. So how we can create it? You can go to the search bar and once you go to the services, you need to put the resource group. Validation is passed. Now you can hit the create button. Let's validate the resource what we created. So we created a resource NSG. Now your NSG resources are ready and that resource can be attached to any rule which you are going to add as a part of your NSG. Let's try to understand the priority. So while adding any of the new rule, you need to keep priority in mind. So these priorities can be from 100 to 4096, and the lower the number, higher is going to be the priority. So it is going to scan traffic against this rule in a sequential manner. As I have mentioned, these NSG rules are stateful. So it acts like a stateful firewall. And what it means by being stateful, for example, this is the traffic which is inbound, which is coming maybe from the internet. You need to only modify inbound rules and your outbound rule will be automatically modified. Similarly, if you want to allow some traffic to go out from a resource, you just need to modify your outbound security rules and inbound rules will be dynamically open. Let's review the inbound security rules. As I mentioned earlier, initially when you create a network security group resource, you are going to get something in default. So these are the rules. Start from 65,000, then 65,001 and 65,500. These are going to be the default inbound rules. Let's try to understand. These rules are not based on the IP address, rather than they are a kind of tags, service tags. So my first service tag is allow VNet inbound any to destination virtual network. That means all the subnets within your VNet can communicate to each other without any restrictions. So how do you read it? Priority is going to be 65,000. Source is going to be your virtual network. Source port is going to be all the known TCP range. And destination is going to be the virtual network. Destination port is going to be any. Protocol is going to be any, and access is allowed. Second rule is 65001, that is tagged as a Azure load balancer. And this is the rule which basically allow your host to probe your VMs. So that is for the health check. Here also, the source ports are any, destination is any, destination ports are any, protocol is any, and the access is allowed. The third one is deny all inbound. That means your source is going to be any, source port is going to be any, destination is going to be any, destination port is any, and access is denied. So all the communication within that VNet is allowed. Any communication or any traffic which is coming from outside is going to be denied by default. Similarly, you are going to get a couple of outbound security rules by default. So let's try to understand what are these. The first rule with the priority 65,000, it is telling you it's a VNet outbound. That means from the virtual network with any port, destination, virtual network protocol, any, it is allowed. So you can initiate traffic from any of the resources within the VNet, and that will be allowed. Second rule is allow internet outbound. That means from any source, if you are trying to reach internet on any of the protocol, it is allowed. The third rule is source any, port any, destination any, and destination port is any, protocol any, and it is denied. These are the rules. These comes by default, hence you will not have ability to delete it or modify it. Let's now try to understand how to create a new rule. So either you can go for inbound or you can go for the outbound security rules. In this case, I'm here in inbound and try to add a rule, and you can see the fields. Sources going to be option like any. You can mention your IP address. You can mention my IP address, and this my IP address is something like detecting your IP address from where you are accessing this portal. It will detect your public IP address automatically. So in my case, if I choose source my IP address, this is going to be the public IP address of my machine. Then you have the service tags and you have the application security groups. Port range you can mention here. If you put asterisk, it means it's going to be the any. Similarly, destination, you are going to have the same options as source. Your service, it can be customized, or you can mention the service name as well. Destination port, if you mention the service, for example, HTTP, it will be popping up automatically. However, you can go for the custom options, and you can also mention those customized ports. You can put a range also, and you can also use a comma to put more ranges or specific ports. Protocol, you can go for any, or you can go for TCP, UDP, and ICMP. Action you need to take while defining the traffic, whether you want to allow it or you want to deny it. Then it comes to the priority. This is the name, and you can also put some sort of the description and add it. We are going to explain all these options one by one. So technically, if you know the IP address, you can put the IP address. My IP address I already explained to you. Any means the source and destination can be any. So now let's focus on the service tag. So service tag is something, a tag to a group of IPs, and there are IPs, those are managed by Microsoft. Those can be storage services, those can be PaaS services, and those IPs are fully managed by Microsoft, and they keep changing. So all the services, how you access resources from your compute to PaaS or from any location to other location, it is based on the DNS. So IP might get changed, but the DNS remains same. Managing those IP address based on your network security rules, it can be very hectic task. They keep changing dynamically. So allowing those big ranges, it can be nightmare. So service tag is very handy when they change the IP address and your DNS resolved to the new IP address based on the tag. Your network security rules will allow that particular traffic. Let's try to understand that in detail. So you have a public connectivity, which is going to be some sort of the internet, and then you have the private connectivity. It can be your MPLS based links, or you can use express route, etc. So this is some sort of the WAN connectivity, and here you are trying to connect your compute, and this compute has some sort of the connectivity. For example, let's take the example of PaaS services. So I have some storage services running. So this compute, it tries to talk to storage, and then you have this NSG placed in between. IP for the storage services are fully managed by Microsoft Azure, and they keep changing. So for example, let's assume this is the storage services I'm running and my IP is 1111. In typical way, what you do in NSG group, you can allow services based on the IP address, and that works. Next time, when this storage IP gets changed from 1111 to 2111, you need to update this NSG. So every time this IP is getting changed, you need to update your NSG groups. So the solution for this is use the service stack, and these service stacks are also something managed by Microsoft. So they are going to update the ranges whenever they change from the backend to the service tag. So if I allow based on the service tag, it means it doesn't matter to me whether the IP is 111 or IP gets changed to some other range. My NSG rules will allow that particular traffic. You can visit this URL and download the IP ranges for those service stack available on public cloud. When you open the downloaded file, it is going to be the JSON format. However, you can search, for example, here I'm searching the storage and I see the name of storage services in West US 2, and it does have all these ranges. So anytime they introduce a new range or they modify some ranges, you can rely on this file and get the latest. And that's how the whole concept of service stack works. I'm inside network security group and trying to modify inbound security rules. So the moment you add a new rule, you can see the source can be service stack. And when you click on this drop down, you will see so many options are available, and these are going to be those service stacks. So it depends upon you what type of services you're using. For example, here I shorted with storage, and it gives me the storage stacks for different reasons. So if I know where my resources or resides, I can use the service stack to modify my network security group. The last option in source is going to be your application security groups. You can very much play with the IP addresses and allow traffic from one place to another place. However, when you have a kind of dynamic environment in nature where you keep bringing or keep decommissioning all these servers or services, you need to modify your network security groups every time. However, what you can do, you can create a application security group, and those particular server or application, they can be part of your ASG groups. So the rule is going to be one-time activity, and then later on, when you add or delete those app services from this group, that is going to be the task left with you. And I'm going to explain in detail what it means and how we can use the application security groups. So it's another kind of service tag only, but that is made by you. So how do we create the ASG groups? So basically you need to go to the search bar and you can put the ASG, and now we see there's a service which is coming as application security groups. It's going to be the similar exercise. You need to give or define the resource group. give it a name. So I'm giving it a name ASG underscore test, and the region is going to be the Central India. And then you can hit the create button. In the next video, we will be doing the labs for whatever we have talked so far. And this lab is going to be based on this diagram. So we'll have the internet connectivity. We'll have the NSG group defined for a VNet. And then you are going to have two VMs. And we are going to test the SSH connectivity on port 22, one with the IP address. And then second one, when you do the grouping for these two VMs as a part of the ASG. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.